Hi everyone, I just wanted to make a video. Um, I wanted to make a video, and this video is basically directed toward people who are currently Jehovah's Witnesses and have kids that are within the organization. I think I've said before in previous videos that when my mom was pregnant with me, she was baptized as a Jehovah's Witness while she was pregnant with me. Even before I was born, I didn't know that my life was going to take a certain direction, that already had been decided for me, and that direction was going to affect me negatively. Also, I don't think I've ever mentioned, or I may have mentioned in other videos, but growing up I was a very sick kid. I was sick a lot. I just had a very, very slow immune system, and I would get I got pneumonia several times. I had 16 ear infections within about a 6-month period. At one point, they thought I had leukemia. I was very fortunate I did not have leukemia, but I was very sick a lot. I never got perfect attendance. I was always at least out of school at least 4 weeks for being sick every year. I would just pray every year that I wouldn't get sick. The closer it got to, school would start, and then closer I got to December without being sick, I would be happy. But it never worked. I always got very sick, and I would be out for a long periods of time to get well. I say that because I also had frequent nosebleeds. My nose would bleed all the time, and I don't mean for like 15 minutes. I mean for like an hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours. There were times I had to go to the hospital because my nose would not stop bleeding. I believe we went to a district convention one year, and my nose started to bleed, and we were in the emergency room. I was at the hospital probably most of that night and half that morning, and then we still had to go to the convention after I got out of the hospital. And I say that because it was always on my mind as a kid that, I wasn't going to be able to have a blood transfusion, and the likelihood of me dying from loss of blood, I felt like was great because I was a kid. When I was being molested from about age 3 to about age 6, I felt very angry. I felt very alone. When I did finally tell my parents, they stopped it, but they didn't do anything for me. Like, they didn't hug me, they didn't send me to someone to talk about it. They just waited on Jehovah. And the reason why I mention these things are up because those of you that are within the organization, you don't know if your kid is being molested or not. My parents had no idea. I was around Jehovah's Witnesses, and those were the only people I was ever allowed to be around. I wasn't allowed to be around anyone else. We were constantly told that, in the last days, that families would turn against each other, and, constantly, if you don't do what Jehovah says, he's going to directly destroy you. That's a lot of fear to put in a child's heart and on their mind. When you're a kid, you have dreams and things that you want to do, but when you vocalize those dreams, like I want to be a gymnast, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a dentist, or I want to be a lawyer, Jehovah doesn't need any of those things in the new system, so take that and squash it. Your only thing out there for you as a girl is to be a submissive wife and an auxiliary pioneer. And if your goals are outside of that, or if you like anything outside of that, you have to squash all of that and put it inside your head. And it has to stay there. And you can discuss it freely with your classmates at school, but you can't say it at home. So you have to basically live a double life. You're taught not to get very close to people because the people that you meet at school or are non-witnesses, you can't get too close to them. Why? Because I used to ask my mom, this person at school is really nice, they're cool, they're really kind to me. Jehovah's going to destroy them. It doesn't matter how kind or how nice they are. They're getting destroyed by Jehovah because they're not Jehovah's Witness. When I was young, I would try to, teach other kids about it because I just wanted to have friends within the organization because I wasn't allowed to have any friends inside the organization. I remember as an adult I remember meeting someone that grew up on my street with me, and they said, "Oh, that's right. You're the little girl that never came outside." That's how they recalled who I was, because I was that kid that couldn't come outside and play with anyone else. That's what you're doing to your kids. You're making them grow up and not be able to establish close relationships with people. If you felt like anyone that you established a relationship with, if they didn't believe the way you did, that they were going to be killed and they were going to die, how could you establish a relationship with them? The Watchtower Bible Tract Society rules out of fear. You're selling your kids to them. They're not getting as many new converts as they were before, and the adults. They are targeting your children. They're targeting them through their mass media that they're putting out. They're targeting through them if they're sick and they can't get blood transfusions. They hope to profit off of the death of your children. You're selling them to them. You're selling them to the pedophiles that exist within the organization. Children are not for sale. Parents, how are you going to stand up at the end of your life and explain to God how you couldn't protect your children or wouldn't protect your children? You don't know that your kid isn't being molested right now. How do you know an elder or someone in your congregation hasn't touched your kid? It doesn't really matter. Even if they did touch your child, you're going to tell your child to wait on Jehovah. No psychological help. Just wait on Jehovah. You're damaging your children. You're selling them to this organization. You're creating them into adults. Let's be real here. The new system's never going to come. This isn't going to happen the way that they're saying it's going to happen. And you're creating a damaged adult that's going to have to try to work through all of the crap that you've done to them. Parents aren't perfect, but it's certain things that you have to do for your kids. It's certain things. Don't sell them to this organization, or they'll end up like a lot of us, trying to put their lives back together as adults, trying to ask the questions of why they weren't protected as a kid, why their parents would allow these things to go on, why they can't establish close relationships with people and maintain them, why that they have fear all the time of death and dying. Why? Don't do these to your kids. Allow them to have a happy childhood. Allow them to be a kid. Don't make them have to wake up in the morning and knock on doors on Saturdays and never have watched cartoons ever. I mean, cartoons seems like something so small, but for a kid, that's just a little glimpse of happiness. But you know, Jehovah doesn't like plastic toys. He doesn't like cartoons. He doesn't like anything. And as a kid, you can't like anything Jehovah doesn't like. And apparently, he doesn't like a lot of stuff. This is what you're doing to your kids. You're hurting them. You're hurting them. Don't sell them to this organization. And if you are inside and you're wanting to leave and your husband or spouse isn't awake yet, I am telling you to do all you can to protect your kid from this, without alerting them that you've been awakened to this. Even if it's something simple like allowing them to do an after school event, like, soccer, something. Give them the opportunity to make and establish relationships outside of this organization. Don't shelter them to the point where making relationships or sustaining friendships is difficult for them. Having intimate, close relationships with people is difficult, because everyone is a throwaway, disposable person to you because they're not on Jehovah's side. They teach us how to lie all the time. Theocratic warfare. You can't be yourself. You can't be yourself. I'm really asking you, don't sell your kids. They're not for sale. They're not for sale. My parents sold me. And I can't begin to express the issues that I have to deal with in this one video. But what I will tell you is the happiness that I found for myself is real. But I have a lot of dark things that I have to deal with a lot of times. And they pop up every single day, and they impair many things in my life. And I have to constantly fight against those things. And I'll tell you right now, I would say about 99% of those things comes from the fact that I was exposed to this cult. Your children are not for sale. Those years I was molested and my parents did nothing. Even after I told them, there were no hugs, there was no help, there was nothing. I always felt angry and alone, and that no one was there to protect me. As an adult, I always feel like I am hyper vigilant and I have to protect myself because no one else will. And when I will tell you this, that is a very exhausting job of trying to make yourself feel safe all the time. It's a very exhausting job. I'm just begging you, and telling you, don't sell your children to the Watchtower Bible Tract Society. Because one of these days, when you get old enough, and you will grow older before your new system arrives, because also remember this, in 2 years, it will be 2014. That will be 100 years from the first prophecy that they put out about 1914. 100 years. They lied. And you're selling yourself and your kids to them. Don't do it. That's all I have for today, you guys. Have a good day.